What are all these people doing in my cabin?
Trevor, I'm Karen, your HOA president. We're using your property for our community celebration.
No, you're not.
My father just died 3 days ago. Such a tragedy, sweetie. But abandoned lakefront shouldn't go to waste. We're showing its potential with 50 guests. You hijacked my family's cabin. We improved it. And you owe us $3,500 for catering and DJ. I owe you for stealing my property? It's community enhancement, not stealing. Karen, enjoy every minute of your party. That's more like it. See how reasonable you can be? My father left special gifts for uninvited guests. What gifts? Army engineers are very creative about home security. By midnight, Karen, you'll never forget this place. What you're about to hear is how Karen hijacked the deadliest cabin on the lake, because she never asked why an Army engineer built traps everywhere. My name's Trevor Donnelly, and 3 weeks ago I thought the worst thing about losing Dad was the grief. Turns out I was dead wrong. Dad was Thomas Donnelly, Army Corps of Engineers, 2 tours in Vietnam, 30 years building bridges that could survive anything. When he retired in '92, he bought this little slice of heaven on Lake Whitmore, 40 acres of pine trees, a weathered dock, and a cabin that held 40 years of father-son memories. Walking up to that cabin always meant stepping into Dad's world. The sharp scent of cedar logs mixed with his Old Spice aftershave, the satisfying crunch of pine needles under boots worn smooth by decades of weekend trips. Inside, the metallic clicking of his old military compass on the mantel, and the soft whistle of wind through gaps he'd engineered for proper ventilation and other purposes. Dad was always tinkering. Motion sensors disguised as decorative garden gnomes, pressure plates hidden under decorative stones, what he called woodland security features, while winking at me. Boy, you never know when uninvited guests might need a proper welcome, he'd chuckle, installing another mysterious wire behind the dock planks. This cabin wasn't just property. It was where Dad taught me to fish, to build, to think 3 steps ahead of any problem. After Mom died, it became our sacred ground, the only place where Thomas Donnelly, decorated combat engineer, could just be my dad. Lake Whitmore used to be a working-class paradise. Mechanics, teachers, retired cops, people who saved all year for their piece of lakefront. Then 5 years ago, wealthy Connecticut retirees discovered us. Property values exploded, and suddenly, a homeowners association appeared to enforce community standards. Translation: ethnic cleansing for the financially privileged. Enter Karen Blackwood, 52, HOA board president, 3-time re-election winner. Picture this: salon-perfect blonde hair that defies physics, matching athleisure that costs more than most car payments, white Escalade with personalized plates. She's mastered the art of delivering ultimatums in the same tone kindergarten teachers use for timeout announcements. Karen relocated from some Connecticut suburb where diversity means owning both a BMW and a Mercedes. She discusses maintaining neighborhood character and attracting quality families with the casual confidence of someone who's never questioned whether she belongs anywhere. The first encounter happened 2 days after Dad's funeral. I'd driven up to begin the impossible task of sorting through 40 years of memories. Instead, I found official paperwork taped to our front door. Property standards violation, immediate remediation required, 14 infractions. Our weathered dock was non-conforming. Apparently natural wood grain violates aesthetic standards. Dad's wildflower garden attracted inappropriate wildlife, butterflies apparently. Our hand-carved mailbox post showed inadequate community presentation. Total demanded improvements, $8,000. Daily fines, $200 until compliance. The sound of expensive gravel crunching interrupted my reading. Designer boots that probably cost more than Dad's monthly disability check. Oh, you must be Thomas's son. That voice, saccharine with underlying steel. Karen Blackwood, HOA board president. Such a tragedy about your father. Unfortunately, these older properties require guidance. She surveyed our cabin like a health inspector discovering rats. 40 years of Dad's craftsmanship, reduced to substandard housing stock. Your father seemed lovely, truly, but Lake Whitmore is evolving toward a more sophisticated demographic. We're cultivating an environment for families who appreciate refined living standards. She paused meaningfully. Perhaps you'd find greater happiness in a community more suited to your background. The discrimination was surgical, never mentioning military service or income directly, but making her meaning crystal clear. Blue-collar families weren't welcome in Karen's vision of lakefront paradise. There's a charming manufactured home community inland, she continued, much more appropriate for your lifestyle requirements. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about property maintenance. This was systematic economic warfare designed to clear out working families for luxury development. Karen Blackwood had systematically targeted every veteran, teacher, and mechanic on the lake. She just made her biggest tactical error, because Thomas Donnelly didn't just teach me fishing and carpentry. He taught me that bullies only win when good people surrender, and he left me a very special inheritance for dealing with trespassers. 2 weeks after that first encounter, Karen escalated to full-scale psychological warfare. I'm talking about a coordinated campaign that would have impressed Dad's old Pentagon buddies. She filed a formal complaint with county code enforcement, claiming my family's cabin posed environmental hazards and imminent safety risks to neighborhood children. The complaint wasn't just paperwork. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic manipulation. Karen organized a fake concerned neighbors petition drive, going door to door with professionally manipulated photographs. Dad's decorative garden gnomes became unsightly property blight. Our weathered dock transformed into structurally compromised hazard, requiring immediate engineering assessment. She even staged evidence. I watched through Dad's old binoculars as Karen dragged trash from her own property, scattered it around our dock, then photographed it as proof of neglect. The metallic click of her camera shutter echoed across the water like gunshots. But Karen's real genius was community pressure. She cornered elderly Mrs. Patterson at the mailbox, suggesting that supporting me might affect her own property assessment. She implied to the Morrison family that problem properties could drag down everyone's home values. The scent of fresh-baked cookies always announced Karen's arrival at neighbors' doors, sweet bribes accompanying bitter ultimatums. Every petition signature belonged to families who'd moved here within 3 years. Wealthy retirees who'd never spoken to my father, suddenly desperately concerned about 40-year-old dock maintenance. 3 days later, County Inspector Bradley Morrison arrived for his emergency assessment. Karen's Escalade was conveniently parked at the golf clubhouse during his visit, probably coordinating their story over expensive martinis. Morrison walked our property like a man following a predetermined script. He found violations requiring supernatural vision, septic concerns based on absolutely nothing, dock deficiencies that had survived 40 years of lake storms, electrical violations for systems installed to military specifications, the scratch of his pen marking violations mixed with Karen's distant laughter from the golf course. Each checkmark represented thousands in mandatory remediation through contractors he'd mysteriously recommend. "Son, I'm gonna level with you," Morrison said, refusing eye contact. "This property needs $15,000 in immediate work, or we're looking at condemnation proceedings. 15 grand. For problems that materialized overnight." That night, I channeled Dad's intelligence training. He'd always said during our evening fishing sessions, "Know your enemy's financial motivations before they know you're watching, son." Public records revealed Karen's elegant corruption. Her husband's company, Blackwood Estates LLC, had acquired 6 lakefront lots in 18 months, all following identical harassment campaigns targeting working families like ours. The financial web was beautiful in its simplicity. Morrison moonlighted for the same remediation contractors he recommended to violation victims. His wife handled part-time bookkeeping for Blackwood Estates. Karen's lawyer, who drafted the threatening notices, was Morrison's golf partner and the development company's registered agent. I remember Dad explaining property law during one of our dock repairs. "Son, these records are public information. Smart folks always check who's getting rich off other people's forced sales." But here's where it got delicious. While documenting Karen's systematic targeting, I discovered her own extensive property violations. Her unpermitted dock extension jutted illegally into public waterway. Her landscape lighting violated the same aesthetic standards she cited against us. Her property line fence encroached 3 feet onto county right-of-way. Karen Blackwood was a walking code violation, citing others for code violations. Mini twist incoming. Just as I finished gathering evidence of her systematic hypocrisy, Karen pulled her nuclear option. She filed an emergency restraining order, claiming my obsessive surveillance activities made her fear for personal safety. My countermove: I'd anticipated this exact escalation. Every piece of documentation was gathered from my own property, using Dad's legally owned military surplus equipment. Completely legitimate. But Karen had just created a paper trail of false accusations I could weaponize later. The temporary order was granted immediately. I was prohibited from approaching within 200 feet of Karen Blackwood, or accessing my own dock area, the exact spot where I'd scattered Dad's ashes just 3 weeks earlier. The judge bought her performance about a mentally unstable veteran, clearly struggling with grief-related psychological issues. My father's death became courtroom evidence of my supposed instability. Standing in my front yard, legally banned from the water where Dad taught me to cast flies and tie knots, I heard those loons calling across the lake, his favorite sound. Their haunting cry mixed with the diesel rumble of Karen's landscaping crew, improving her own illegally modified property. The bitter irony cut deep. She'd legally barred me from Dad's memorial site, while simultaneously violating every law she used to harass my family. But Karen had made a fatal tactical error. She'd weaponized a soldier's death and underestimated his son's capacity for patient, strategic revenge planning. I walked back into the cabin, breathing the familiar mixture of cedar logs and Old Spice aftershave, and began studying Dad's property blueprints from his military footlocker. 40 years of mysterious improvements suddenly made perfect sense. Karen thought she'd checkmated me by getting legal prohibition from my own dock. She had no idea she'd just provided the motivation to activate every defensive system my Army engineer father had spent decades installing. Karen didn't waste time celebrating her legal victory. Within 48 hours, she escalated to full psychological warfare, disguised as community safety. Picture this: a fake Lake Safety Committee meeting at the community center, complete with official invitations and catered refreshments. The agenda promised discussion about dangerous properties threatening our children and investments. The meeting was pure theater. Karen had prepared a professional slideshow featuring my cabin with ominous music and dramatic lighting. Dad's memorial dock became a hazardous magnet for transients and drug activity. The scent of Karen's expensive perfume filled the room as she clicked through slides of character assassination. Every image was weaponized propaganda. Our weathered wood became structural decay indicating mental negligence. Dad's garden gnomes transformed into signs of psychological instability. His 40-year-old American flag was labeled aggressive political messaging designed to intimidate neighbors. This property has clearly become a community liability, Karen announced to 70 nodding retirees. She displayed photos of me fishing at dawn, captioned as suspicious pre-dawn activities and possible substance abuse behavior. The audience absorbed every lie. Connecticut transplants, who'd never spoken to my father, suddenly concerned about property security and neighborhood safety standards. But Karen's real weapon was Lake Whitmore's gossip network. She cornered Martha Chen at the post office, expressing deep concern about my mental state. At the grocery store, she suggested to Tom Bradley that I was converting the cabin into a party rental that would bring undesirable crowds to our peaceful lake. The whisper campaign spread like oil on water. Karen approached the elderly Kowalski family with documents claiming I'd made threatening gestures during property line disputes that never happened. She convinced Mrs. Patterson, 83 and trusting, to sign statements about witnessing erratic behavior she'd never observed. Meanwhile, I was applying Dad's old intelligence training. Let the enemy reveal their tactics while you document everything. Those weekend conversations with Dad about operational security suddenly made sense. I installed discreet surveillance equipment that looked like ordinary yard decorations. Trail cameras disguised as birdhouses captured every approach. Motion sensors hidden in decorative stones monitored property boundaries. Audio devices tucked inside Dad's weatherproof gnomes, a trick from his military days, recorded everything. The system revealed Karen's systematic trespassing campaign. Every Tuesday and Friday, while I was supposedly at work, Karen conducted safety inspections of my property. She photographed everything, measured distances, took detailed notes for future violation reports. The metallic click of her camera shutter, mixed with her muttered comments about documentation requirements. Mini twist incoming. On October 15th, my cameras caught Karen's evidence staging operation. She dragged beer bottles from her own recycling, scattered them around my dock, then photographed them as proof of my drinking problems. My countermove. Instead of confronting her immediately, I let her continue. Every staged photo, every false document, every trespassing incident was building my legal case against her systematic harassment. The audio recordings were pure gold. Karen's phone calls with her husband revealed their entire strategy. We need documentation showing deteriorating mental state. Make it look organic, concerned neighbors, not targeted harassment. I remember Dad explaining during our evening dock repairs. Son, surveillance laws vary by state, but recording criminal activity on your own property is usually protected. Always check local statutes before gathering evidence. But Karen's nuclear option was filing another emergency injunction, claiming my counter-surveillance activities constituted stalking and intimidation. The court order arrived with devastating precision. I was now prohibited from any monitoring, recording, or observing activities that might make Karen feel unsafe in her neighborhood environment. The legal manipulation was breathtaking. Karen had turned my legitimate security measures into evidence of threatening behavior, then used that manufactured evidence to expand her control over my actions. Standing in my kitchen, reading the expanded restraining order, I heard the distant whine of power saws as neighbors rushed to make unnecessary improvements rather than risk becoming Karen's next target. The sound mixed with her victory laughter, echoing across the water from her deck party, celebrating another legal win. The psychological pressure was suffocating. Not only was I banned from Dad's memorial dock, I couldn't even document Karen's crimes against my property, but she'd made a tactical error. The overly broad injunction prevented me from normal property maintenance and security measures, creating grounds to challenge her entire harassment campaign as legally overreaching. I walked to Dad's military footlocker and pulled out his old operational planning notebooks. 40 years of mysterious improvements finally revealed their true purpose. Every decorative feature served dual functions. Every safety modification was actually defensive preparation. Karen thought she'd legally blinded and bound me. She had no idea she'd just provided the motivation to activate systems that didn't require my direct involvement to operate. Dad's final lesson was about to demonstrate the difference between harassment and warfare. Karen's confidence was peaking, and that made her reckless. Emboldened by 2 legal victories, she announced an emergency HOA meeting to vote on immediate property seizure for acute community safety threats. The timing was surgical precision. Karen scheduled the vote for October 28th, exactly when I'd be at a mandatory IT security conference in Albany. She'd researched my work calendar, ensuring I couldn't defend myself against her manufactured accusations. The meeting notice arrived with bureaucratic menace. Emergency session, Resolution 47B, immediate property acquisition under community safety provisions. Karen had weaponized HOA bylaws to create legal justification for theft based on documented mental instability and property hazards endangering neighborhood welfare. She'd orchestrated the perfect ambush. Every wealthy transplant received personal calls about protecting our investments from dangerous elements. Karen promised them immediate property value improvements once my cabin was properly managed under community oversight. The propaganda was surgical. Professional folders containing staged photographs, fabricated incident reports, and edited audio clips made my normal property maintenance sound like terrorist preparation. The glossy paper smelled like expensive ink and Karen's signature perfume, the scent of calculated destruction. But cracks appeared in Karen's coalition. Longtime residents like Betty Rodriguez questioned the extreme tactics. Tom Morrison discovered Karen had filed noise complaints against his weekend projects while exempting her own identical construction. The metallic sound of his hammer hitting nails suddenly became disruptive when it wasn't serving Karen's interests. Mrs. Patterson confided to Betty that she'd signed documents without understanding them, after Karen promised to handle everything appropriately. Working families realized they were witnessing systematic ethnic cleansing disguised as property management. Meanwhile, I was implementing Dad's defensive protocols. While legally complying with restraining orders, I remotely activated diagnostic testing on security systems Karen didn't know existed. Dad's engineering was beautiful subtlety. Rustic cabin features were sophisticated automation disguised as woodland charm. His garden sprinkler system could deliver substances beyond water. Motion-activated safety lighting provided illumination with additional capabilities. Weather protection dock mechanisms served multiple functions. Every system had backup power and wireless connectivity from Dad's retirement projects. 40 years of preparation for exactly this scenario. My real surveillance breakthrough came when hidden cameras captured Karen's husband with construction crews on my property. They measured foundation points and discussed demolition schedules after acquisition. The bitter taste of realization hit me. Demolition permits were already filed, contractors scheduled, plans finalized. Karen's harassment was cover for predetermined theft with immediate destruction of Dad's legacy. Mini twist incoming. During her latest trespassing expedition, Karen discovered some of Dad's visible security devices and panicked completely. She called her lawyer, screaming about evidence that could expose our timeline and demanding immediate safety modifications before the vote. My countermove: every device Karen found was deliberately visible, decoys designed to make her think she understood Dad's system. The real defensive network remained completely invisible, gathering evidence of her criminal conspiracy. The audio recording was pure desperation. Those cameras prove we've been planning this acquisition for months. Get them removed before anyone connects our demolition permits to the harassment timeline. But Karen's most desperate escalation was filing fabricated criminal charges claiming I'd violated restraining orders through continued surveillance and intimidation. She presented manufactured evidence of my violations to demand immediate arrest warrants. The sheriff's deputy serving the papers looked physically uncomfortable. "Son, I knew your father well. This whole situation stinks to high heaven, but I've got orders to follow." His badge reflected the afternoon sunlight as he handed me papers that could destroy my life. Standing in my kitchen, reading criminal charges based on Karen's perjury, I heard the rumble of construction equipment positioning near my property line. She'd already ordered catering for her post-seizure celebration party, planning to toast her victory on the same land she was stealing through systematic fraud. The sound of her victory laughter echoed across the water from her deck, mixing with the diesel exhaust from demolition equipment, already staged for immediate action. The woman was so confident she'd stopped bothering to hide her criminal conspiracy. The psychological warfare was complete. Karen had isolated me legally, socially, and criminally. Her rubber stamp HOA vote would legitimize theft disguised as community protection. But she'd made the tactical error of underestimating a dead Army engineer's paranoia. I opened Dad's final letter marked, "Open when they try to take everything." His handwriting was steady, instructions clear, and absolutely devastating. Karen wanted to celebrate stealing my family's property with a victory party on our land. She'd already sent invitations, hired caterers, planned her triumph speech. Perfect. Dad's 40-year preparation was about to teach Karen the difference between winning battles and surviving wars. The education would be unforgettable. Dad's final letter changed everything. Sitting in his old leather chair, breathing the familiar mixture of cedar and Old Spice, I unfolded papers that would make Karen's lawyer wet himself with terror. "Son, if you're reading this, some bureaucratic vulture is trying to steal what we built together. Time for your old man's final lesson in defensive planning." The first document was a property deed I'd never seen. Dad hadn't just bought our cabin in 1987. He'd purchased it through the Donnelly Family Irrevocable Trust, established specifically to protect against future development pressure. The trust included reverter clauses that voided any forced sales and automatic legal defense funding that had been accumulating interest for 35 years. Karen's entire harassment campaign was legally meaningless. Our property was never subject to HOA authority because it predated their formation by 15 years. New York state law protected pre-existing property rights with ironclad grandfather provisions. But the beautiful part? Dad's trust included bad faith harassment clauses that triggered massive financial penalties against anyone attempting systematic intimidation. Every fake violation, every fraudulent complaint, every staged photograph was building a legal judgment that would bankrupt Karen's development company. The second revelation was financial. Karen's husband had borrowed $200,000 against projected profits from acquiring my property at below-market rates. Architectural plans, demolition permits, luxury condo pre-sales, all financed through loans, assuming forced acquisition would succeed. If their theft failed, Blackwood Estates would face immediate bankruptcy. The third document was my real inheritance, 40 years of audio surveillance recordings. Dad had been documenting every interaction with HOA officials, county inspectors, and development companies since 1985. He'd anticipated Karen's exact strategy and recorded everything. Every bribery conversation, every conspiracy meeting, every fraudulent inspection. Dad's military intelligence training had created an evidence archive that would send multiple people to federal prison. The recordings were devastating. Karen discussing eliminating the military trash element with her husband. Inspector Morrison coordinating predetermined violations with contractors. The lawyer explaining how to manufacture mental health concerns for property seizures. Karen had been so confident in her legal immunity, she'd never realized a retired Army intelligence officer was documenting her crimes in real time. But Dad's final gift was the security system itself. What I'd thought were his eccentric retirement projects were actually integrated defensive measures designed for exactly this scenario. The sprinkler system contained harmless but permanent purple dye mixed with biodegradable adhesive, impossible to wash off for weeks. The dock mechanisms were pressure-sensitive platforms designed to safely dump trespassers into shallow water while photographing their faces. Motion sensors throughout the property triggered speakers playing military cadence songs at maximum volume. Every quaint garden feature was a defensive weapon, disguised as rustic charm. The beauty of it, Dad's letter continued, is everything activates automatically when trespassers exceed 5 people on the property. No manual operation required. You're legally protected as long as you're not physically present during activation. Karen's planned victory party would trigger every system simultaneously. The emotional impact hit me like a physical blow. Dad hadn't just left me a cabin, he'd left me justice. Every fake violation Karen had filed was actually evidence for federal racketeering charges. Every staged photograph was proof of systematic fraud. Every bribery attempt was recorded criminal conspiracy. I walked to Dad's gun safe and pulled out the final surprise. Business cards for Sarah Chen, a property rights attorney who'd been fighting HOA abuse for 20 years. Dad had been paying her a monthly retainer since 1995, ensuring immediate legal representation if his family ever needed it. The phone call was simple. Ms. Chen, this is Trevor Donnelly. I think it's time to activate my father's legal defense plan. Her response was beautiful. Trevor, I've been waiting for this call for almost 30 years. Your father's documentation is the most comprehensive HOA abuse case I've ever seen. We're going to destroy these people. Karen thought she was stealing my property through systematic harassment. She had no idea she was walking into a legal trap 40 years in the making. Dad's final lesson was about to teach everyone the difference between temporary power and permanent consequences. The next morning, I met Sarah Chen at her downtown office, and within 10 minutes I understood why Dad had chosen her as our secret weapon. Sarah was a 5'2" Asian American lawyer who specialized in crushing corrupt HOA boards with the enthusiasm of a medieval executioner. Her office walls displayed framed victories, $2.3 million judgment against a discriminatory board in Rochester, federal racketeering convictions for a development conspiracy in Syracuse, criminal fraud sentences for 3 county inspectors who'd been taking bribes. Your father was a brilliant strategist, Sarah said, spreading Dad's evidence across her conference table. This documentation creates multiple felony charges against Karen, her husband, Inspector Morrison, and their lawyer. We're talking federal conspiracy, civil rights violations, fraud, extortion, and racketeering. The legal strategy was surgical precision. Civil lawsuit for damages, criminal complaints for fraud and conspiracy, emergency motions to dissolve all harassment orders, and federal civil rights charges based on systematic discrimination against working families. HOA boards have fiduciary duty to all homeowners equally, Sarah explained. Selective enforcement based on social class violates federal fair housing laws and creates personal financial liability for board members. Karen's about to discover that discrimination is expensive. While Sarah coordinated the legal assault, I began community ally recruitment using social media and neighborhood connections. Karen's harassment hadn't targeted just me. She'd systematically attacked every working-class family on Lake Whitmore. Betty Rodriguez, retired teacher whose cultural garden decorations were banned as inappropriate community aesthetics. Tom Morrison, mechanic fined for parking his work truck in his own driveway. The Chen family, no relation to my attorney, whose traditional holiday decorations were declared non-conforming community standards. Each family had documented evidence of Karen's discriminatory enforcement. Betty had saved every fake violation notice. Tom had recorded Karen's threats about maintaining neighborhood character. The Chens had photographed Karen's trespassing expeditions and evidence staging. Together, we represented a pattern of systematic harassment that would create federal civil rights liability. Meanwhile, I was remotely testing Dad's security systems while maintaining legal compliance with restraining orders. Every test was conducted as routine property maintenance diagnostics, completely legitimate and thoroughly documented. Dad's engineering was masterful integration of defense and deception. The garden sprinkler system's purple dye reservoirs were full and pressurized. Motion-activated speakers throughout the property tested perfectly, ready to blast military cadence songs loud enough to shatter windows. The automated dock retraction mechanisms responded flawlessly to weight sensors, calibrated to safely dump anyone over 100 pounds into 3 feet of muddy lake water. Security cameras with live streaming capability were positioned to document everything from multiple angles with automatic cloud backup. Karen's party would be preserved for legal evidence and social media immortality. The media strategy was Sarah's suggestion. Channel 7 investigative reporter Mike Stevens specialized in corruption exposés and loved HOA abuse stories. We arranged for him to receive anonymous tips about Karen's discrimination pattern, coordinating his investigation to coincide with her illegal victory celebration. Public humiliation amplifies legal consequences, Sarah explained. When corrupt officials become viral videos, judges and prosecutors feel pressure to pursue maximum penalties. I spent evenings organizing comprehensive evidence packages, proving Karen's criminal conspiracy. Timeline documentation showing harassment escalation coordinated with development plans. Audio recordings of illegal strategy discussions. Financial records revealing inspector bribes and legal manipulation. Photographic proof of staged violations and systematic trespassing. The psychological preparation was visiting Dad's grave to explain the battle plan. Standing among rows of white military headstones, I promised justice for his legacy and protection for every working family Karen had targeted. Dad, you taught me that bullies only win when good people surrender. Tomorrow night, we show Karen what happens when she messes with the wrong veteran family. Community preparation involved discreet instructions for party night. Allied neighbors would document everything with smartphones from public areas. Contact media and police if Karen's behavior escalated. Provide witness statements about harassment patterns, and most importantly, stay safe while ensuring Karen's crimes were fully exposed. Final system testing confirmed Dad's integration was flawless. Cameras providing comprehensive coverage, non-harmful but highly effective deterrent systems, automatic evidence uploading to secure servers, and emergency shutoffs preventing any actual injury. The beautiful irony was perfect. Karen believed I was helpless and traveling. Her party would provide maximum witnesses to her criminal trespassing. Dad's systems would deliver unforgettable consequences without my physical presence, and legal/media support was coordinated for immediate response. Everything converged into Dad's ultimate lesson about the difference between harassment and warfare. Karen had spent months attacking a grieving son. Tomorrow night, she'd discover what 40 years of Army engineering preparation could accomplish. Property owners have absolute right to automated security systems that activate during trespassing incidents, as long as they don't cause serious injury. The trap was set. With her victory party just days away, Karen made her most desperate move yet, attempting to destroy evidence before the celebration that would expose her crimes. I'm talking about full-scale breaking and entering with criminal intent. Karen believed I was attending the Albany conference, giving her perfect opportunity to ransack the cabin for Dad's military documents and property trust papers. My hidden security cameras captured everything in high-definition detail. At 2:47 a.m. on October 26th, Karen's white Escalade crept up my driveway with headlights off. Her husband waited in the getaway vehicle while she used lock-picking tools to enter through the back door. The sound of splintering wood mixed with her whispered curses as Karen searched through Dad's belongings like a desperate burglar. She rifled through filing cabinets, dumped drawers, tore apart his military footlocker, looking for anything that could expose her development conspiracy. Dad's motion sensors documented her every movement, while she remained oblivious to the surveillance network recording her felony crimes. The metallic clicking of her flashlight, switching between rooms, provided perfect audio evidence of systematic trespassing with criminal intent. But Karen's panic was beautiful to watch. Unable to find the trust documents that would destroy her legal strategy, she began destroying what she could discover. Family photos torn from frames, Dad's military awards scattered across the floor, his Purple Heart certificate crumpled and thrown into the garbage. The violation of Dad's memorial space triggered something primal in my chest. This wasn't just theft anymore. It was desecration of a soldier's legacy by an entitled sociopath who believed her money made her untouchable. Meanwhile, Karen was escalating community intimidation beyond anything she'd attempted before. Elderly Mrs. Patterson received threatening wellness check visits from Karen's supporters, demanding she retract previous statements supporting my family. Tom Morrison found his work truck vandalized after refusing to sign an anti-Trevor petition. Karen was spreading vicious rumors about property value destruction if I won any legal battles, pressuring moderate neighbors to publicly support her seizure efforts. The scent of fear hung over Lake Whitmore as working families realized Karen's vindictive power extended beyond simple harassment. Her lawyer attempted emergency court filings claiming I'd violated restraining orders through threatening behavior toward community leadership. The fabricated evidence included doctored photographs and fake witness statements from Karen's supporters, timed to prevent any legal response before her victory party. Mini twist incoming. During her criminal break-in, Karen discovered some of Dad's visible security equipment and completely panicked. Her recorded phone call with her husband revealed pure desperation. "There are cameras everywhere. What if he's been recording our planning meetings?" My countermove. Every device Karen found was a deliberate decoy designed to make her think she understood Dad's surveillance system. The real security network remained completely invisible while documenting her criminal conspiracy in real time. Karen's response was hiring a security consultant to sweep my property for recording devices before her party. What she didn't realize was that Dad's real surveillance used military-grade equipment hidden within the property's natural features, impossible to detect without specialized government sensors. But Karen's nuclear desperation was attempting to bribe Sheriff Deputy Roberts with campaign donations and country club membership, seeking to delay any law enforcement response to trespassing complaints during her victory celebration. The recorded conversation was pure corruption. "We need you to ignore any calls about the community event tomorrow night. This unstable veteran might try to disrupt our peaceful celebration, and we can't have police interference with legitimate community activities." Robert's response was professional disgust. "Ma'am, I can't ignore criminal complaints based on donations. That's called corruption, and it's a felony." Karen's final manipulation was contacting the local newspaper claiming I was a dangerous PTSD veteran, planning to violently disrupt peaceful community celebration. She provided fake psychological evaluations and fabricated police reports, trying to frame any resistance as mental illness rather than legitimate property defense. Standing in my actual hotel room in Albany, maintaining perfect alibi while monitoring everything remotely, I watched Karen's complete breakdown through hidden cameras. Her final phone call with her lawyer revealed the depth of her desperation. "We're in too deep to stop now. The demolition crew is scheduled for Monday. The condo pre-sales are finalized, and we've spent the development loan. If this seizure doesn't work, we lose everything." The pressure had transformed Karen from calculated predator into cornered animal. Her systematic harassment campaign was collapsing into obvious criminal conspiracy. but she was financially trapped into continuing the theft attempt. Perfect. Desperate criminals make fatal errors. Karen's victory party was scheduled for 7 p.m. tomorrow, featuring catered food, live DJ, and 50 guests celebrating on property she was stealing through systematic fraud. She'd even hired a photographer to document her triumph over the problematic military element. Dad's 40-year security system was about to provide Karen with documentation she'd never forget. The final lesson was 12 hours away. The morning of Karen's victory party brought her most corrupt escalation yet. Systematic bribery of local officials and media manipulation designed to frame me as a dangerous threat. By 8 a.m., Karen was making calls to every county official who might respond to complaints about her illegal celebration. The recorded conversations revealed pure corruption as she offered campaign contributions and community investment opportunities in exchange for ignoring trespassing reports. Her conversation with County Supervisor Walsh was textbook bribery. The community needs strong leadership support for our development initiatives. Perhaps we could discuss a consulting contract for your wife's firm, while ensuring this evening's celebration proceeds without unnecessary police interference. But Karen's real genius was preemptive character assassination. She contacted Channel 7 News, claiming I was a mentally unstable veteran with documented PTSD, planning to violently crash a peaceful community event. Her fake evidence package included fabricated police reports and doctored psychological evaluations. This dangerous individual has been stalking our community leadership and making threats about disrupting tonight's celebration, Karen told the reporter. We're concerned he might attempt something violent when he realizes his property harassment claims have been legally rejected. The media manipulation was surgical precision. By framing any resistance as mental illness, Karen hoped to discredit my legitimate property defense before the truth could emerge. Meanwhile, her party preparation was deliberate psychological warfare against Dad's memorial legacy. Karen's setup crew systematically destroyed every tribute to his military service. They removed memorial garden stones to create dance floor space, cut down the flagpole where Dad's colors had flown for 40 years, painted over foundation numbers marking his service dates. The sound of power tools destroying Dad's carefully maintained memorial features echoed across the lake like gunshots to my soul. Karen was erasing 40 years of veteran pride to make room for her celebration of theft. Her party decorations celebrated new community leadership and improved property management. Banner reading, "Lake Whitmore's Bright Future," hung directly over the spot where I'd scattered Dad's ashes. The psychological cruelty was calculated and complete. Mini twist incoming. Hours before the party, Karen's security consultant discovered that my supposed absence was actually elaborate alibi construction. Hotel records and conference attendance proved I was genuinely in Albany, but Karen paranoidly assumed this was sophisticated deception. My countermove. Her paranoia made her more reckless. Believing I might crash the party, Karen hired additional security and expanded the guest list to create more witnesses to her legitimate community event. More people meant more evidence of mass trespassing. Karen's final desperate gambit was attempting to frame the party as official HOA business. She filed emergency paperwork, claiming the celebration was a community improvement demonstration, legally authorized under HOA bylaws, hoping to provide legal cover for obvious criminal trespassing. The paperwork was laughably fraudulent. Retroactive authorization for events already planned, signatures from board members who'd never seen the documents, dates altered to suggest advance approval that never happened. But her most revealing moment came during setup supervision. My hidden audio captured Karen's true motivations as she directed workers to remove all that military junk permanently. After tonight, this property belongs to people who understand proper community values, she announced to her catering staff. We're finally cleaning out the undesirable element that's been dragging down our neighborhood. The mask had completely slipped. This wasn't about property standards. It was ethnic cleansing disguised as community improvement. As sunset approached, Karen's confidence reached delusional heights. She changed into an expensive cocktail dress and began greeting early arrivals as if she were hosting a party at her own estate. The sound of champagne corks popping mixed with DJ equipment testing at volumes that violated every noise ordinance she'd used to harass other families. 50-plus guests arrived in luxury vehicles, parking across my landscaped yard with complete disregard for property boundaries. Karen's victory speech was scheduled for 8 p.m., delivered from a makeshift podium built directly over Dad's memorial garden. Tonight, we reclaim Lake Whitmore for families who appreciate refined community standards, Karen announced during soundcheck. Her voice carried across the water with arrogant satisfaction. No more military trash bringing down our property values. Standing in my Albany hotel room, watching live security feeds on my laptop, I felt Dad's presence like a physical weight on my shoulders. His 40-year preparation was about to deliver justice for every working family Karen had targeted. At 7:47 p.m., guest attendance exceeded the critical mass threshold. Dad's weight sensors detected over 50 trespassers, concentrated on the memorial dock area. Every automated system armed simultaneously. Karen raised her champagne glass for the victory toast, completely unaware that she was standing directly over the pressure plate that would trigger her education about the difference between temporary power and permanent consequences. I activated Dad's final gift with a single remote command. The lesson began. At exactly 8:03 p.m., as Karen raised her champagne glass for the victory toast, I activated Dad's masterpiece from my Albany hotel room. The dock's pressure-sensitive planks detected 50-plus trespassers and executed their primary function, controlled retraction designed to safely deposit every single party guest into 3 feet of cold, muddy lake water. The sequence was beautiful choreography. Karen's makeshift podium collapsed first, sending her tumbling into the shallows, while still clutching her champagne glass. The wealthy retirees in their designer outfits followed like dominoes, splashing into lake water that hadn't been warm since July. But Dad's engineering wasn't finished. As soaking guests attempted to climb out, the automated sprinkler system activated throughout the property, spraying everyone with biodegradable purple dye, mixed with harmless but permanent adhesive. The stuff was impossible to wash off for weeks, like a scarlet letter identifying trespassers. Motion-activated speakers began blasting military cadence songs at maximum volume. Left, 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 right, left, echoed across Lake Whitmore at decibel levels that rattled windows 3 properties away. The DJ's expensive equipment shorted out spectacularly when lake water hit the electrical connections. Karen's white Escalade, along with every other luxury vehicle, was locked inside the property by automated gate systems that detected unauthorized entry. $50,000 worth of BMWs, Mercedes, and Cadillacs trapped like animals in a pen. The visual spectacle was unforgettable. Purple-stained party guests stumbling through ankle-deep mud in ruined evening wear. Karen screaming profanities while covered head to toe in dye that made her look like a rejected Smurf. Expensive catering equipment floating in lake water like debris from a shipwreck. Channel 7's Mike Stevens captured everything with professional camera crews positioned on public property. His telephoto lenses caught Karen's complete meltdown in high-definition detail as she realized her victory celebration had become a viral humiliation. This is Mike Stevens, reporting live from Lake Whitmore, where what was supposed to be a community celebration has turned into chaos after automatic security systems activated during what appears to be mass trespassing on private property. Sheriff Roberts arrived with backup units and arrest warrants prepared by Sarah Chen's legal team. The beauty of Dad's system was its complete legality. Property owners have absolute right to install automated security measures that activate during criminal trespassing. Karen Blackwood, you're under arrest for breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted bribery of public officials, and civil rights violations, Roberts announced with obvious satisfaction. His handcuffs clicked with metallic finality around Karen's purple-stained wrists. Karen's public breakdown was spectacular television. Soaking wet, covered in permanent dye, and facing federal charges, she screamed at the news cameras about undeserving people who don't understand their proper place in society. These military types think they own everything. This property should belong to people with proper breeding and education. Her true classist motivations poured out in a torrent of privileged rage that confirmed every discrimination allegation. Tom Morrison led a standing ovation from longtime residents who'd gathered to witness Karen's downfall. Betty Rodriguez shouted, "That's for targeting our families," while applauding the purple-stained chaos. Even some of Karen's former supporters distanced themselves from her obvious criminal behavior. Sarah Chen arrived with federal investigators and emergency court orders, dissolving every legal harassment Karen had orchestrated. All previous restraining orders are immediately voided based on fraudulent evidence. Mr. Donnelly's property rights are fully restored. The community response was spontaneous celebration. Working families who'd suffered Karen's harassment for years watched their tormentor led away in handcuffs while covered in purple dye. Lake Whitmore's WhatsApp group exploded with messages like, "Finally," and "Justice for the Donnelly family." Karen's husband attempted to flee in his purple-stained BMW, but was arrested at the property gate for conspiracy charges. Their development company's assets were immediately frozen pending criminal investigation. The technical beauty of Dad's system was its non-violent precision. Nobody was seriously injured, just thoroughly humiliated and permanently marked as trespassers. The purple dye would serve as a scarlet letter, identifying Karen's co-conspirators for weeks to come. As police loaded the last purple-stained trespasser into patrol cars, I arrived from Albany to survey the aftermath. The scene looked like a paint bomb had exploded at a country club mixer, expensive clothing ruined, luxury vehicles trapped, and Karen's criminal conspiracy exposed on live television. Standing on Dad's dock, legally restored to my access, I delivered my statement to Mike Stevens' cameras. My father served this country for 30 years defending freedom and property rights. He taught me that bullies only win when good people do nothing. Tonight, Dad's final lesson worked exactly as he planned it. The mic drop moment was perfect television. A calm, dignified veteran explaining justice, while Karen's screams echoed from the police car behind me. 6 months later, the legal consequences were everything Sarah Chen had promised and more. Karen Blackwood received 3 years federal prison for civil rights violations, conspiracy, and racketeering. Her husband got 5 years for financial fraud and bribery. Inspector Morrison was sentenced to 4 years and lost his pension for corruption. Their lawyer was disbarred and received 2 years for conspiracy to commit fraud. Blackwood Estates filed bankruptcy within 90 days. Every property they'd acquired through harassment was returned to original families at below-market rates, funded by liquidating Karen's personal assets. The $200,000 development loan became the bank's problem, not mine. But the real victory was Lake Whitmore's transformation into a model community for HOA reform. The new board, elected after Karen's criminal conviction voided her authority, implemented bylaws protecting pre-existing property rights and cultural diversity. Anti-discrimination policies carried legal enforcement mechanisms, with automatic attorney fee coverage for harassment victims. Community funds were established to help working families fight future corruption. Mom would have loved seeing Dad's memorial garden restored by volunteer neighbors. Betty Rodriguez organized weekend work parties that replanted his wildflowers and rebuilt the flagpole. Tom Morrison donated his carpentry skills to repair damage from Karen's party setup. The Chen family contributed traditional decorations that Karen had banned, now celebrated as community heritage. The annual Property Rights Day celebration honors resistance to authority abuse. Every October 28th, Lake Whitmore hosts a potluck dinner featuring veterans, teachers, mechanics, and retirees sharing stories about standing up to institutional bullying. Dad's cabin serves as unofficial headquarters for families needing support against corrupt officials. My personal healing came through transforming grief into purpose. The Thomas Donnelly Memorial Fund provides legal defense grants for military families facing HOA harassment nationwide. Sarah Chen helps coordinate free representation through a network of property rights attorneys who specialize in housing discrimination cases. Weekend retreats at Dad's cabin now host veteran families recovering from similar battles. The sound of children's laughter echoing from the dock where bullies once threatened eviction creates the kind of community Dad always envisioned. Property values actually improved once authentic neighborhood spirit replaced artificial gentrification. Families who bought homes for community connection rather than investment status created lasting friendships across economic and cultural lines. The Defenders Fund, established using Karen's fine money, has grown into a regional organization providing practical support for harassment victims. Free property rights education workshops teach families how to document abuse and gather evidence. Legal defense toolkits help working families fight back against corrupt boards. Volunteer attorneys donate time through the network Sarah Chen established, ensuring every family has access to professional representation, regardless of financial resources. The program has successfully defended over 40 families and secured criminal convictions against 12 corrupt officials. Technical education prevents future victimization. Workshop sessions teach residents that property records are public information. Always research before moving into HOA communities. Documentation strategies help families photograph, record, and preserve evidence of systematic harassment. Legal rights education explains how selective enforcement based on class or background violates federal fair housing laws. Dad's security system remains operational as both memorial and deterrent. The purple dye sprinklers serve as gentle reminder that trespassing carries colorful consequences, while motion sensors ensure the property stays protected. No one has tested the system since Karen's party, but neighborhood legend keeps potential troublemakers respectfully distant. The cabin stands as proof that ordinary families can defeat institutional corruption through intelligence, preparation, and refusal to surrender. Dad's military engineering provided the tools, but community solidarity made victory possible. Lake Whitmore's transformation from harassment zone to veteran-friendly sanctuary proves that standing up to bullies creates positive change beyond personal victory. Karen's downfall became local legend, cautionary tale for future tyrants, and inspiration for families facing similar abuse. Next month's project involves helping my neighbor Betty fight city council members trying to force demolition of her husband's veteran workshop through zoning harassment. Corrupt authority figures apparently never learn that Lake Whitmore families stick together now.
3 years in federal prison. That's what Karen Blackout got for billing a grieving son $3,200 to clean up her own illegal party. See, Karen made the classic mistake. She assumed Trevor was just another broken veteran who didn't understand property law. What she didn't know was that Thomas Donnelly has spent 40 years turning that cabin into a legal fortress disguised as a fishing retreat. Every garden knoll has camera. Every dog plank was pressure sensitive. Every bringer could deploy purple dye that wouldn't was off for weeks. All of it perfectly legal, undocumented, waiting for exactly the kind of entitled trespasser Karen turned out to be. The beautiful part wasn't watching pity party guests get dumped in lake water. It was seeing Karen's development company go bankrupt because they borrow against profit from property they never actually own. Her husband got 5 years for conspiracy. Their lawyer was disbarred. Trevor didn't just win. He dismantled an entire corruption network with his father's final gift. Makes you think about your own HOA, doesn't it? How many Karen are out there targeting families they think would fight back? Drop your worst HOA story in the comments and hit subscribe if you want to see more bullies learn expensive lesson. The smallest tyrants always fall the hardest.